All right, your resident Gemini here, Maria Riegger, with another astrology video. We are talking today about Aquarius kids. Um, we just ended Aquarius season. We're officially in Pisces season, so I'm a little behind, but here's the video. Aquarius is one of my favorite signs. It's an air sign, masculine energy sign, and a fixed sign. So masculine energy means it's Aquarius is more focused on doing activity, less focused on emotional stuff, emotional issues, less intuitive, less emotionally intuitive than water signs. Water signs, earth signs are feminine energy signs. Uh, Fire signs and air signs are masculine energy signs. So, as an air sign, Aquarius is more concerned with logic and intellect, rationality, observation, being analytical, more concerned with those things than emotions, okay, and intuition. It's also a fixed sign. So last month we talked about Capricorn, how that's cardinal energy sign. Cardinal energy means you're always moving forward, moving ahead, intent on achievement. A fixed sign is more concerned with maintaining stability, maintaining order, um, kind of sometimes it has more of a fixed mindset than a growth mindset. Not always. I don't like to use that distinction. It's not exact, but it's more the fixed signs are more concerned with maintaining things, maintaining the stability of things. It's typically harder for them to deal with change, harder for them to change their minds about things. And we'll talk about that a little bit more with Aquarius. So when I think about Aquarius, first of all, Aquarius is one of my favorite signs. It's an air sign like me. I'm a Gemini. The first thing I think about when I think of Aquarian kids is that they are mentally scattered. Every parent of an Aquarian child that I talk to, and every Aquarian adult that I talk to, mentions this trait. They are always thinking. They are mentally all over the place. They need a lot of mental and intellectual stimulation. As kids, they are often told, "You're not listening, you're not paying attention," and they're often criticized for that. They are not intentionally trying to be disobedient. They're not intentionally uh, neglecting to listen to you. They are so wrapped up in their heads, they cannot stop thinking, and that's why when you try to talk to them, they're in their heads and they're not always paying attention. These are not kids you can lecture. Gemini is the same way. When you lecture an Aquarian child, they tune out. After about 10 seconds, they're going to be tuning out. And your lecture is a waste of time, it's a waste of energy. They cannot pay attention while you're droning on because they have so much mental activity in their heads they can't stop it. As kids, they it's really hard for them to stop that activity. And that's for that reason sometimes it's hard for them to get to sleep at night. Although my sister's an Aquarius and she can sleep anywhere, so maybe that's not the best example. But they have a lot of mental activity, and it's hard for them to pay attention for long periods of time. They're called some parents will call Aquarian kids spacey, spaced out, scatterbrained. When I was a kid, my parents said that about me. You're a scatterbrain. You never pay attention. You never listen. Stuff like that. Please do not call your Aquarian child scatterbrain or spaced out or a space cadet or an airhead. Please don't call them names like that. Those are negative. Frankly, they're insulting to a child. You're just going to make the child feel bad about themselves. Instead, help the child remember things. Use tools like lists. It's a great thing to use. Give the child a list of things to do that he or she needs to do. So when they forget, which they will forget, they can go back to the list and double check the list. So it gives them some security. Oh, yeah, I forgot, but I can check. Help them remember. Help them be in charge of their assignments at work and at school. Every Aquarian adult I know is very successful and has a very fulfilled life. So even though they're scattered as kids, kind of mentally scattered and forgetful, they learn to deal with that. With the parents' help, they will learn to deal with that. You can give them the tools to help them be more organized. Tell them, I want to help you. How can I help you? Don't just call them scatterbrained and leave them to their own devices to figure out how to make kind of order of the world and of what they're supposed to do. You're supposed to be helping them. But that's by and large kind of the biggest complaint I hear about those kids, that they're mentally scattered. Those are some ways you can help them deal with that. But it's nothing to worry about. That's how they are. You cannot change that. You cannot make them turn off the mental activity. It's just not going to happen. So you have to accept them how they are. I always say this in all my videos: accept the child as he or she is, right? Work with the child's energy. That's the first thing. The second thing I think about when I think about Aquarian kids, they are very observant, analytical, rational, logical, and very detached. They observe things in a very detached, clinical way. This is a great trait to have. So, air signs are very good at detaching themselves, taking themselves out of the situation and observing a situation kind of from outside of it, almost as like an onlooker, even if they're in the situation. So, they're good at seeing things from someone else's point of view. They're good at looking at the situation logically instead of being so emotionally wrapped up in the situation that they can't see the forest for the trees. On the other hand, fire signs are very ego oriented. Almost every fire sign sun person I know who has a sun sign, almost everyone that I know has a hard time seeing things from other people's point of view because fire signs are very ego oriented. It is very hard for them to step back, get outside of themselves, and see things from the other person's point of view. Air signs are very good at that. They're very good at looking at things as an observer in a detached clinical way. So that's great. On the other hand, with Aquarius, the first kind of when they have facing a situation, their first knee jerk reaction is to observe and analyze. It's not to empathize. I'm not saying that they lack empathy. Please do not worry that your Aquarian child is a sociopath. More than likely, he's not. No Aquarius I know is a sociopath, adult or child. But the first knee jerk reaction to a new situation is to observe and analyze. So they're sometimes considered to be emotionally cold because they are very analytical. They're very clinical, right? So they can empathize, but that's not the first reaction. The first reaction is this is interesting and this is curious. I'm going to study this. And then later they may get to the empathy part, get to the caring part. So a couple things. When you notice that about your child, that they're very observant, that they may kind of detach, and they don't always react emotionally, please do not tell them you're so cold, or you don't have any emotion, or you don't show any emotion. Please don't treat them like they're abnormal or call them things that suggest to the child that he or she is abnormal. We talked about that with Capricorn last month because Capricorn is very stoic. Emotions are very private. So don't tell your child you're so cold. Help them. The observant, analytical, detached nature of Aquarius is a great trait to have. Okay, they're they you can learn the one way you can help them develop empathy is to help them identify and articulate the feelings they have and why they're feeling that way and validate those feelings. That's how kids learn to have empathy for themselves and for other people. So that's something you can do to help them. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but always good to help your kids articulate what they're feeling so they deal with emotions in a very healthy way. Also, Aquarius is not typically a sign that talks readily about emotions. So, and we said this last month with Capricorn, when your Aquarian child wants to talk to you, any child really, especially children that don't talk about emotional stuff that easily, like air signs, when your Aquarian child wants to talk to you about anything, especially about important stuff like how he's feeling, drop everything and be present for the child. Be ready when they want to talk to you. Give them your full attention, make eye contact, put your phone away, be present for them. Okay? very important for the relationship. And the point of these videos are so you have to help you develop a very strong, rock solid relationship with your child so that when he or she grows older, becomes an adolescent, preteen, teenager, you still have that great foundation so that you can get through the tough times. And there will be lots of tough times. I can tell you, I have a great relationship with my son, and we still irritate each other. That's just how it is. Anytime, any person you spend significant amount of time with, it's going to irritate you, and that, adult or child. But with children, obviously, they kind of know how to push your buttons, but also they're finding their ways in the world and they can come across as selfish, but it's really them just kind of trying to navigate life, right? Figuring out how to do that. Okay, so what else? So Aquarius is known as a sign of the revolutionary. It's a freedom loving sign. It's an independent minded sign. It's also a social sign. Aquarius likes freedom, but they define themselves in relation to the group. It's not an independent loner type of sign. It's not That's not Aquarius. Independent, but they're very social and define themselves in relation to the group. That's how famous astrologer Robert Hand puts it, and that's a very apt description. And have my tea. So Aquarius is very social. Your Aquarian child will have a ton of friends, be very open-minded, have friends and contacts from all walks of life, every type of person you can imagine. Um, and they will, I don't want to say rebel is not the right word. They will assert their independence, and they will do it by, when they're older, get a tattoo or change their hair color or dye their hair purple or some weird thing like that. They don't mind being different, and they like being different. But again, it's not an independent loner type of sign. When I think of independent loner, I think of Capricorn, maybe Sagittarius, very independent, although Sag just tends to be social too. Uh, but Aquarius is very social. Aquarian children typically, a lot of adults too, typically have FOMO, fear of missing out. So it's a very extroverted energy. So, well, I had a point to this. Let me go back a little bit. They like to be different. I talked to Aquarian adults who, as children, did all kinds of crazy things with the hair and the clothes and wanted to be different, but different in relation to the group, because different in relation to what everybody else is doing. So, one thing I want to tell you as a parent, when your child decides to dress differently or in what you would consider to be a weird way, or dye their hair a weird color, or cut their hair in a weird way, or whatever, please don't tell your child things like, why do you have to be different? Why can't you be normal? Why can't you be like everybody else? Why don't you do what so and so does, or why don't you join chorus, or why don't you join the football team, or why don't you do cheer, or why don't you, I don't know, do whatever? Please do not suggest to your child that he or she is abnormal. Why would you do that anyway as a parent? Their likes and dislikes are particular to them, and they may be different from your likes and dislikes as the parent, but that doesn't make them any less valid. So please don't say things to your child like that. Instead, say, well, I'm glad that you're kind of having different experiences. I'm glad that you're thinking about this stuff. What do you think about this? Ask open ended questions. Don't suggest that you're criticizing them. Um, and if, for example, they dye their hair purple and then they regret it, let them regret it. That's a life experience. You don't have to save them from the regret of dyeing their hair or making another decision like that. So let them let them explore their freedom. Give Aquarian children a lot of different experiences and let them decide what they want to do, what they want to pursue, things like that. Very important with the relationship with the child, because Aquarians are very freedom seeking. So when the children are older and even get into adults, if they felt very repressed as children, they will not be drawn to the parents as they get older. They will want to get away from the parents. So if you don't want that type of dynamic when they're older, build a strong relationship by accepting them as they are and making sure they know you love them unconditionally. That nothing they would do would make you love them any less. Very important for the parent-child relationship. What else? Talked about that. Talked about that. Oh yeah. So we talked about Aquarian children, very social, very friendly, very outgoing, very amiable. They get along with almost everybody. Very personable. They they have a lot of friends. Talked about that. It's an extroverted energy. Almost every Aquarian person I know tests as an extrovert on the MBTI test. As we talked about last month, I have never found any one factor in a person's birth chart, whether sun, moon sign, or whatever, to denote whether someone is an introvert or an extrovert. It's always a combination of things. As a general rule, I found the moon sign to be a better indicator of that introversion or extroversion than the sun sign, but the moon sign is not foolproof either. So Aquarius is an extroverted energy. However, I do know Aquarian sun people who test as introverts. So if your Aquarius child is an introvert, the Aquarian energy is going to uh, make them seek social interaction. It's going to drive them to seek social interaction in groups, and that's going to be very tiring for them because it that type of social group dynamic it drains an introvert's energy. So you're going to have to show your child, if they're an Aquarian introvert, you're going to have to teach your child to make sure that he or she bookends the periods of social activity with periods of alone time to recharge his or her batteries. And as you, as the parent, have to show them how to do that. You could tell them, look, I know you want to go see your friend or go to the movies, but we did a lot of activities today or yesterday. Today we should take a break for us and let's do something together, like sit at home, watch TV, read books or games, and just relax. And tomorrow we'll do something else fun. Because those kids will probably just keep seeking social interaction and not realize that it's draining their energy until they absolutely crash and just have a meltdown. I mean, look, I'm an adult. I have introvert meltdowns. So you can imagine what they're like as children. So you're going to have to show them and teach them how to take breaks. Very important because they're still going to be seeking the social interaction. It's just the nature of Aquarius. Okay. Oh, so we talked about the clinical nature of Aquarius and kind of the detached, observant nature. And I've noticed this dynamic when you have a relationship where one person is an air sign and one person is a water sign, like Gemini and Scorpio, or Aquarius and Scorpio, or Pisces. So if you're a water sign parent, Pisces, Scorpio, or Cancer, you're going to be very emotionally intuitive. You read people's emotions very easily. Aquarius doesn't. They don't because they're an air sign, more detached. So if you're the water sign parent, sometimes you may expect people you're in a relationship with, including your child, to know what you're feeling just because you're feeling it. But they won't. That's not their knee jerk reaction of an air sign. So please be patient with your Aquarius child if you're a water sign parent, especially. Water sign parents are very nurturing, they make excellent parents. This is a dynamic I've noticed that the water sign person just expects everyone to know his or her emotional needs because he assumes everyone else is emotionally intuitive like he is, and that's not the case. Air signs are not typically, they're just not as emotionally intuitive as water signs. So you're going to have to help your child, and you're going to have to learn how to articulate your feelings to your child. I've told my son before, hey, when you said that, it really hurt my feelings. And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings." I said, I know you didn't mean to hurt my feelings, but it did. It hurt my feelings. You're going to have to learn how to articulate your own feelings to your child, always in an age appropriate way. I want to throw it out there because it's a dynamic I see pretty consistently. Okay, so we talked about Aquarians being independent and freedom loving, but also like being part of a bigger order and a bigger group. They kind of derive their sense of ego from things external to them, the group dynamic. And Aquarians, when they get involved in a group, they tend to dominate the group. You'll see them a lot as leaders. So, and this kind of goes back to what we talked about a few minutes ago. It's kind of hard to articulate, but I'll do my best. So, they like to be part of the group. They're also freedom seeking and like to assert their independence within the group. So here's what I want to say about that. We talked about make sure you don't suggest that your child is abnormal for liking things that are different from the group. There is value in, this is my opinion, there is value in figuring out as an individual how you can contribute to society, how you can help individuals, how you can bring value to society. There is great merit in that. And that's what a lot of Aquarians do, figuring out kind of their place in the order. There is no value in conforming to some societal norm or expectation merely for the sake of conforming, or in order to avoid criticism, or in order to avoid ostracism. There's no value in that. Okay, so it goes back to what we were mentioning earlier. When you suggest that your child is abnormal, why can't you be like other children? And I have known parents that said that to their children. Why can't you be normal? Why do you have to be different? You're suggesting that they conform to some societal norm for the sake of conforming. Why? So you can feel more comfortable? That's a very insecure parent if that's the case. Okay, so examine those feelings if you have them. Okay, examine those feelings of insecurity. If you want your child to conform to some societal expectation, why do you want them to do that? For them or for you? It's a dynamic that I see a lot with very immature parents. There's a great book called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. It's on Amazon. It's an ebook as well that goes into a lot of those topics. So if you have questions about that, you may want to read that and see if you identify those dynamics in your family. I just want to throw that out there. So this is an interesting trait about Aquarius. So it's a fixed sign. And Aquarians, this is always an interesting dichotomy with Aquarians. It's a fixed sign. And the sign is very open-minded. Like I said, these kids will have friends from all walks of life. They will interact with people from all walks of life. Very open-minded sign, very liberal-minded sign. They're very fixed in their core values and the core ideas that they hold. They are very fixed. When I interact with my Aquarian friends, it's always interesting because some issue will come up and they are like their mindset is so fixed on that issue. They will not change their mind. And as a Gemini, Geminis are constantly absorbing new information and constantly reevaluating. And we're constantly reaching new conclusions about certain issues and changing our minds. It's a huge criticism people have about Geminis. They're two faced, they're always changing their minds, they're wishy washy. It's because we are constantly absorbing and reevaluating new information and coming to new conclusions because we're a mutable sign. We change between fixed and cardinal. It can go either way. But Aquarius is fixed, and to their core values, the ones that are most important to them are very fixed. And when I interact with my Aquarian friends, I'll say things like, "There's no new information I can give you that may lead you to think about this differently." No, there's no. It's like this, and that's it. So it's an interesting dichotomy about the sign. Don't forget, it's a fixed sign. And with that comes a certain amount of stubbornness. Now, Aquarius is by far not the most stubborn sign. We'll get to that side later. But that fixed mentality kind of gives them a bit of a stubborn nature when you're talking about those core values. In other areas, very open-minded. People should do what they want, blah blah blah. But it's interesting when you hit upon those core ideas they have. It's yeah, it's very hard to get them to change their minds or think about those values differently. Okay, I think I think we covered pretty much everything. The last thing is that Aquarians, contrary to what some people may think, they do like a certain amount of structure. And I think this goes to the fixed nature of the sign and also to the fact that they kind of derive their sense of ego from the group, so from things that are external to them instead of internally focused. So instead of being internally focused. So they do like some order and structure. So Aquarius is associated with the planet Uranus, which is a revolutionary planet, but it's not. And Robert Hand talks about this in his book Horoscope Symbols. It's an excellent discussion. It's not an exact or a perfect match, matching the sign of Aquarius with the planet Uranus. Aquarius likes a little more stability and structure. So it's not a sign that is choose structure or is choose government. Um, that goes kind of to the social group nature and group orientation of the sign. I want to throw that out there too. So, but Aquarian kids are, I don't want to say they're easy to parent, but they can be pretty easygoing until you come upon, you touch upon the issues that are really, really essential to them. Then it's a different story. But they're usually pretty easygoing and open minded. Uh, One of the bigger complaints is, like we talked about earlier, the kind of them being mentally scattered. That's a big complaint I hear a lot about Aquarian kids. And the other one is that they don't show emotion. They do show emotion. They do have emotion. They just their first um, instinct is to clinically observe and analyze before getting to the emotional part. So that's different from other signs. So that's Aquarian kids in a nutshell. I hope that was helpful. Please email me, comment below if you have any questions. I will have another video. I'm going to do a short video about the most important components of a birth chart next week or the week after, whenever I have extra time. Because I'm a Gemini, I've got my hand in different things. It's just how we roll. So I'm always doing different stuff. So, and it's, of course, it's Pisces season. I hope everybody has a great Pisces season. And we will be doing a video in the next few weeks about Pisces children. All right, take care. Have a great weekend.